And so this notion that somehow there's damage or it destroyed his life is completely insane, because all that has happened out of this is his name has become much more popular. He's someone who's known, whereas if this hadn't happened, he would simply be another 2700 that nobody had ever heard of. That's just the reality. There's so many people, like I'll give you a great example of someone who's much better than Hans, who's not a household name, and that would be... Let's go. Netflix documentary on Carlsen Niemann scandal announces 2026 release date. Written by Tarjay Svensson. Netflix officially announced on Tuesday that its highly anticipated documentary on the 2022 scandal involving GM's Magnus, Carlsen, and Hans Niemann will premiere on the platform on April 7, 2026. Untold Chessmates revisits one of the most explosive controversies in modern chess history. The Hollywood Reporter revealed... Oh, it's cut off a little bit. Okay, one second. Sorry, you guys. Cut off? Okay. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay. The Hollywood Reporter revealed Netflix release dates for Volume 4 of Untold, the documentary series known for covering the most fascinating stories in sports. Among the 4 episodes coming out this spring is Chessmates, which was originally expected for release in 2025. It will now premiere on April 7th with a trailer coming out on March 10th. Okay. All right. The episode centers around what perhaps became the biggest and most talked about controversy in modern chess history. It began with what Netflix describes as Niemann's epic controversy-shrouded victory over Carlsen at the 2022 Sinquefield Cup, eventually leading to allegations and revelations of cheating. Why would Hans agree if it told the real story? No, actually, sorry. So let me pause right here before we keep going with it. What I was starting to say at the beginning on this topic relating to the real story is that I don't think there's going to be, the real story is going to be told in here unless chess.com has told it, because as many people know, and I've said a million times before, these rumors were very, very, very serious. They were spoken about amongst the top players long before the actual, the culmination of the whole saga in St. Louis with the Sinquefield Cup. And I have my doubts that any of those top players who are talking about it in a very animated fashion on multiple occasions were interviewed or even would choose to take part in something like this, because many of them have chosen to simply fade into the background behind the scenes. So I don't think that we're going to get that part of the story. Maybe chess.com will have something to say on that. Like, I have no idea what Danny's Wrench, the boss or the king, the final god of chess, will say in this, because he might say something, but who knows if he will or won't say anything. But we'll see what happens. Determined to clear his name, Niemann fights his way back to the top of the chess world, setting the stage for a high-stakes rematch with Carlsen in 2024. Netflix wrote in its official synopsis. Okay, this is already a little bit weird, but let's keep going. Untold Chessmates. A few other details on the documentary have emerged, but a film crew was spotted filming during the 2024 Speed Chess Championship Finals in Paris, the 2024 Champion Chess Tour Final in Toronto, and the 2024 FIDE World Blitz Championship in New York, with their dramatic quarterfinal match between Carlsen and Niemann. Norwegian media have also reported that Netflix crew was present during Carlsen's wedding in Oslo in January 2025, just days after his match with Niemann. Okay. Carlsen had previously confirmed that he has spoken for the documentary. Since then, he has largely avoided speaking publicly about the controversy. One exception was during an episode of Joe Rogan's podcast in February last year, where the Norwegian explained himself. There were a lot of factors that made me very, very suspicious. I think ever since then, he has become better, but there's still something off both then and now. 22-year-old Niemann, on the other hand, has frequently shared his candid thoughts about the controversy. In an interview with WGM Dina Bell and Kyle Lasher, he described the episode as the greatest injustice in modern chess history. Okay, cool story. Okay. The fact that there is a Netflix documentary and an A24 movie is the unfortunate PR-created scandal that was designed to destroy a 19-year-old's life, Niemann said. You know, I'm just going to say this also. One thing that really I find kind of like comical about the whole thing is the way that Hans continues to give off this narrative that it somehow hurt him. In reality, this ended up helping him tremendously. His name is incredibly popular, and he's someone that a fair amount of people outside the chess world have heard of. And so this notion that somehow there's damage or it destroyed his life is completely insane, because all that has happened out of this is his name has become much more popular. He's someone who's known, whereas if this hadn't happened, he would simply be another 2700 that nobody had ever heard of. That's just the reality. There's so many people, like I'll give you a great example of someone who's much better than Hans, who's not a household name, and that would be Yavokir Sindarov. So if you look at someone like Yavokir Sindarov, his rating, I mean, maybe his rating's on the up and up in the last like 6 months or something. But if you look at Sindarov, if you ask anybody on the street who is Sindarov, nobody has any idea who Sindarov is unless you're very deeply involved in the chess community. Like, you're just not gonna know who Sindarov is. I mean, there are plenty of other people that go to 2700 Chess who I'm sure, like Duda, another example, nobody's ever heard of Jan Krzysztof Duda. Another great player who's better than Hans, who nobody has ever heard of. Let me see, who else is in that range who people probably have heard of? Probably almost nobody has heard of Jordan van Forest or Laquan Liam or Nihal Sarin. So most of these names, I mean, I'm not going to say that Nihal's a better player or that Laquan or Van Forest are, but you see a lot of players who basically nobody is. Vincent Keimer, another great player. Vincent Keimer is like, oh man, Vincent Keimer is a great player. And probably nobody's heard of him. So like, I kind of find it weird how there's still this notion that it's like, it's the end of the world and this, that, or the other thing. Because it's just not reality. Let's keep going. Okay. Okay, where were we? They might view my life as such a gift, how lucky I am to be famous, but in reality, it means absolutely nothing to be said. My dedication to the game of chess supersedes all and any financial ambition or fame. All this means nothing. If you look at the damage that's done in my chess career, it's undeniable. Again, I mean, I don't actually think that's true. I don't. I don't think that's true. He's getting to play in plenty of tournaments. I mean, he's had opportunities. His rating has not really gone up. It's been in the same range for the last 2 years now. So it's kind of very, very weird. Very, very, very weird to see. But of course, I mean, you're going to say things a certain way. Okay. All right. I am a bit nervous, but also excited about the final result because they did a good job talking to Danny and me. Chess.com CEO Eric Alaba said, I expect some things in there are going to be surprising for the chess world to find out. Okay. Untold Chessmates becomes the second chess-related documentary release of the year, arriving 2 months after Queen of Chess featuring GM Judith Polgar. That film chronicled the rise of the greatest female player of all time and was met with strong reviews, eventually making it to Netflix's global top 10 list. The Carlsen Niemann saga is also headed to the big screen, with Hollywood production company A24 developing a feature film titled Checkmate, which will dramatize the same scandal. A release date is yet to be announced. So, we'll see what happens. As I said, I did a short interview for it. I have no idea what it's going to look like, but it's anybody's guess. I mean, the one thing I will say about this is I think it is way too late in order for this to have a massive impact. This incident happened, like 4 years ago, like almost 4 years ago. So it's been a very, very long time since this incident occurred. And so I mean, I'm a little bit skeptical the general public is to be like, OMG, like everybody wants to eat this up or anything like that. If you were to ask me what I hope the outcome is going to look like for this, I hope that there is definitely information about all the rumors and what people were saying behind the scenes long before the game in St. Louis happened. I think that would be my main takeaway. If that's in it, I don't think anything else is really going to be like crazy if I see it or don't see it. But I do think that is actually a very important point to be made, because there are a lot of people who aren't under that, and a lot of people think that somehow it's like, Magnus just suddenly on the fly out of nowhere suddenly lost the game and got super pissed and decided to accuse him of cheating, or there are a lot of people somehow seem to think that I was in some way like majorly involved with this, when of course I was not at all. Everything that I spoke about on my stream, I had of course heard from other players. Let's just say other GMs, not even just like random players, but all GM type players. So my hope with what this will look like is basically that some form of the true story, and or maybe even names of other top players end up in this in some way. Because if it's something that basically is something that just makes Hans look good and makes it look like it's some Magnus thing, or chess.com Magnus and I, or some weird conspiracy theory, I'll be very disappointed. But we'll see. No one knows what's in it yet. Nobody knows. But it remains to be seen. Remains to be seen what it's going to look like. I'm not under any NDA or anything else to not say anything. So one thing that I would say, and I've actually said this pretty much from the get-go, another thing that's been conveniently twisted and turned. Of course, I was asked straight up, like, if I think that Hans cheated in that game. And of course, I answered that and I said no. But Hans, of course, has cheated in other games, specifically online, quite a few times, as we saw in the chess.com report. So that's the only bit of tea that I have. I don't know if that's going to be in there or not. I wasn't asked a lot of substantive questions, I would say, but I'm guessing there will probably be something with me for some short period of time. Might be more if Hans chooses to try and attack me endlessly and they feel like doing something crazy, but we'll see. We'll see what it looks like. Here we go. Here's our article. Okay. U.S. figure skater Alysa Liu said she didn't care if she medaled. She won gold. Okay, this is pretty funny, actually. Milan. Okay. Alysa Liu has won the Olympic figure skating gold, the first U.S. woman to do so in over 2 decades. It's an ironic outcome for the 20-year-old who said earlier this week that she wasn't motivated by a medal. She doubled down while talking to the press right after it went on Thursday. Oh my God, this actually sounds exactly like me. This actually sounds literally exactly like me. Oh my God, this is actually funny. This is hilarious. This is hilarious, actually. I don't need this, she said about the hunk of gold. I don't need this. But what I needed was the stage, and I got that. So it was all good no matter what happened. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Totally. I agree. Totally. This is pretty funny. In fact, Liu seemed more energized about a different kind of gold, a new version of her sparkly competition dress, which she debuted on Thursday. If I fell in every jump, I would still be wearing this dress, Liu said with a laugh. She said she was buoyed by a late night dinner with family and friends who were watching in the stands. I had to put on a show for them, as well as the smiles on the face of the strangers. I have to smile too. I have no poker face. Liu dazzled the Milano ice skating arena with her joyful free skate set to Donna Summer MacArthur Park suite and loaded with sassy poses, effortless looking triple jumps, and an ear-to-ear grin. She had her signature raccoon stripe ponytail soared, extending a carefree confidence and getting the crowd progressively louder with every clean landing onto its feet. She later described her feelings on the ice as calm, happy, and confident. Liu's easygoing demeanor and expressions of genuine enjoyment have been her hallmark since she returned to the sport in 2024. She retired 2 years earlier at age 16 after finishing 6th at the Beijing Olympics. I mean, this is actually really funny. This article could literally be written about me if it was about something other than chess. This is hilarious. Oh, sorry. By the way, I noticed the article's a little bit off. You guys can't see it to a T, so let me make it a little bit wider. Actually, no, it's good. But this is hilarious. It's literally written to T about me. Because obviously I retired from chess at the end of 2019, and then the pandemic happened, and then I came back to chess in 2022. This is funny. This is actually really funny to read. Okay, I am grateful for both Olympic experiences, but I feel like I am more gracious now because I have stuff that I want to share, and I want to be her, Liu said. And I think that's the difference from last time. Liu came back with a newfound love of the sport and sense of self, see her smiley lip piercing and grunge hair stripes, and by 2025 was a new world champion. She leaves her second Olympics with 2 gold medals, one from the team event and one in the individual, the first for U.S. women since Syracuse in 2002. Now we've got to go back to the other scene. Unfortunately, my moms will have to stitch this together afterwards. Where was I? There we go. When asked what message she wanted to send to others, Liu replied, "I guess it's doing stuff that people tell you shouldn't do. I've been doing a lot of that." Now, this is actually pretty funny to read as well, because this literally sounds like something I would say. It's like, I've been streaming all the time. I don't play every Grand Chess Tour event. I'm doing things that aren't right in chess. It's pretty funny, actually. It's pretty funny to see someone else saying this, because it literally is my exact view of chess. Okay, other highlights from a banner night. Liu's performance immediately shot her straight to the top of the leaderboard, where she stayed through the end of the night. 2 skaters after Sakamoto and Nakai of Japan claimed silver and bronze respectively. It was a literal passing of the torch. Sakamoto, who won bronze in Beijing and is retiring after these Olympics. Nakai is just 17 and in her debut senior season. The Milan crowd erupted in another round of cheers as scores and reality sank in. An exuberant Liu exchanged long hugs with her coaches and also with the Japanese skaters, who were visibly emotional. "I honestly don't think that I was going to win a medal. So when I found that out, I was overjoyed," Nakai told reporters through a translator. Liu actually came up to me and said, "Congratulations, it's amazing that you won a medal on your first Olympics." Okay. Is there anything more here? Let me see. Is there anything else? Yeah, there's nothing more in this article really to be added. But it is pretty funny to see some of these quotes, because these are literally quotes that I myself would say. It's like, I don't need this, she said about the hunk of gold. I would say the exact same thing about chess. Like, I don't need to win the candidates. It would be nice to win it, but I don't need to win it. But yeah, it's pretty funny. Yeah, I don't need this. It's great. What else was there? What was the other great part? What was the other great part about it? What was the other great part? Yeah, retiring and then coming back. That's just amazing. Doing stuff that other people tell you shouldn't do. Just amazing. Actually, like, really amazing to see some of these quotes. And I think it's kind of important to note how, like, you don't have to do there isn't just one way to there isn't just like one way to go about things. There are many ways to go about things. Many ways. So that's pretty cool to cover this article. Yeah, I literally don't need. That's going to be my catchphrase for the next month and a half, you guys. I don't need it. I don't need it. Yeah, I don't need it. So athlete recognize athlete. Yeah, I mean, their mindset's definitely, I will say, chess, even if it's not a physical sport, the mindset that you need to have in chess can definitely be related, be related elsewhere, for sure. Absolutely. So really good article. Really good to see someone winning with this hilarious comment. Like, amazing stuff. This, of course, is an article about the Esport Nations Cup 2026 with a 128 player field. This is a specific event that's going to be happening. So let's get into the article. It says, chess joins the Esport Nations Cup 2026 with 128 player field. Written by chess.com, February 7th. The Esports World Cup Foundation, EWCF, has today officially announced that chess will be a part of the inaugural Esports Nations Cup, ENC, set to take place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia from November 2nd to 8th, 2026. Chess will be one of the 16 esports titles at ENC 2026, with 128 players competing for their countries and territories, not clubs or teams. The event aims to expand chess into the global esports ecosystem, enabling a new talent from underrepresented nations to compete on a major stage. So EWC will now be ENC. No, you guys, that's a good question. EWC is a separate event, the Esports World Cup. This is going to be the E-Nations World Cup. So I believe it's a different event altogether. There are no teams. You have players individually representing their countries. So it's completely separate. Okay. The chess tournament will run from November 2nd to 8th, concluding with the playoff final on the last day. The group stage will feature 16 groups of 8 players each in a round-robin format. The top 4 players from each group advance to the 64-player single elimination bracket. So as I read it, this is basically the same sort of format as the World Cup, which currently exists. Of course, it's a separate event altogether, but it looks like the format is the same with single elimination of 64 players. Okay. What do we have? All matches are best of 2, while the quarterfinals and beyond are best of 4. Games will be played with a time control of 10+0, with Armageddon games if required. A total of 128 players will qualify for the chess event at ENC 2026 through these 3 different routes. 64 direct invites through the Champions Chess Tour rankings, limited to 1 player per nation. I'm going to be honest, I don't understand what this means, by the way, when it says 1 player per nation, because that would imply that like if 3 Indians actually qualify through the Chess Champions Tour rankings, let's say there's Gukesh, Arjun, and Prag, at least those 3, it sounds like only one of them is going to make it, and not all 3 are going to play in the event, which is pretty brutal if we're being honest. The Title Tuesday Spring Split will be used as an additional tiebreaker should there not be 64 unique nations featured in the CCT rankings. 56 regional qualifier spots on chess.com and 8 wildcard spots. So that's how you get to the total of 124 players. Regional qualifiers will take place June 6th to 7th and June 13th to 14th on chess.com, awarding 8 spots per region across North America, South America, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Africa, Middle East Asia, Central Asia, and Eastern Asia, Southeast Asia, Oceania. Each nation can have up to 2 representatives in the ENC 2026. Now, I'm going to be honest, I've got no idea what on earth is going on here. I don't understand how they intend to get players from every nation. It seems very, very questionable they'll be able to. So, for example, I assume that Fabiano and I will qualify, but I don't know if any other Americans make it beyond that. So it's all very, very weird. As I read it, it looks like it's only going to be 2 players, meaning that you're very likely going to have a highly imbalanced field potentially, where you're going to have players from weaker nations, if I read it correctly. Now, if I'm reading it incorrectly, and Levon too, how does Levon make it? Actually, no, like legitimately, no cap. How does Levon or Wesley make this? Like I'm not joking. It says 2 unique players from every nation. I mean, that's what it says. It says 2 players. It doesn't say it doesn't say like 8 players from the US can play. I mean, if I read it correctly, and maybe I'm reading it wrong. I could be reading it wrong. It's saying, it says very, very clearly, if we look at this, that it will be 2 players per nation, limited to. So let me try to understand this, because maybe I'm misreading it now. Okay, ENC. Okay, it says 2 to 8th, June 13th, 14th. Am I misreading it? 8 players are a lot. I mean, I could be misreading it. It's entirely possible I'm misreading it, and it's different than what I understand it. But it says each nation has up to 2 representatives. I don't know. Like I don't know, you guys. Maybe I'm crazy. But it says each nation can have up to 2 representatives, meaning that would mean Fabiano and I would probably qualify at the moment, right? And that means nobody else can qualify from the US if we're the top 2, which doesn't make sense. So I'm gonna have to get some clarification on this, because now that I read it, I'm like, wait a second, because that'd be like saying 2 players from, I don't know, from Vietnam could qualify, which would be great. But then like only 2 players from the US can qualify, even if you have like literally top 10 players in top 60 from the US. So very, very strange. But we'll see what it's like. It's just like World Cup and any other sport. It's not wild to me. The only problem with this format, as I see it now, having read this, is that it means that basically you're going to have severe imbalance. It's not the same as I would say that the spread or the differential between, say, the United States and India, for example, and say, I don't know, I'm going to say a country. I'm not trying to be insulting, but let's just say Ghana, for example, is far greater than the difference between, I don't know, like Argentina and Ghana in football. Again, I'm not someone who follows European football very closely, but I think that in the FIFA World Cup, it's substantially closer, is what I would say. I think it's substantially, the gap is much smaller in football than it is in chess. But I could be wrong, of course. I could be completely wrong in how I'm looking at it. But I think that it's a little, you're gonna have like, I don't think it's a good thing if you have like me playing it, like if you have me or Fabiano playing against a 2200. I don't think that's a good thing in any shape or form. I don't think it's good for it's good because it's very lopsided. We're obviously gonna win. I also think that for example, you know, on the other hand, you could have us playing, and then you could have like, I don't know, like you could have like Turkey playing against like India, and Turkey, for example, with Erdogmas would be very, very strong. That's a very close match. You have a close match, and you have a big gap in a match which isn't close. So, Ghana is actually very good at football. Okay, so I literally picked the one African nation that's really good. I didn't know that. Sorry, I don't follow football closely. I'm sorry. But football against any country, can surprise any day. But chess, no 1800 is going to beat Hikaru. That's actually true. Yeah, chess. I've said it before, but I think that one thing that people oftentimes miss with chess is they miss the fact that in chess there's very little luck. There's very little that isn't just pure skill, and like chess is a very predictable game overall. Very, very predictable. So I think that's something that's missed oftentimes when I see things like this, where it's like you think that all the players are good and there's relative balance, but that's just not the case in chess. So let's keep going. Okay, so the EWCF recently announced that ENC will have a total funding commitment of $45 million to the esports ecosystem, with $20 million directly paid to players and coaches across the 16 titles. With the prize pool for the chess event has not yet been announced, the event will build on the momentum from the Esports World Cup 2025, where chess made its highly successful debut with the world's top players competing for a massive $1.5 million prize fund. 8 players per 7 regions for that set of spots adds. So you're saying it's not 2 players. You're saying it's 8 players. If it's 8 players, then that's a lot different. Okay. If it's 8 players from the US, for example, okay, that's not shocking. Okay, then that's not crazy at all. I was gonna say if you only have 2 players from the US, I mean, I guess theoretically you could have 4 players from the US, because after the US beat Canada in hockey, obviously Canada is now part of the US, so maybe then you could have four spots representing the entire US, rather than just 2. But still, I do think that, yeah, if it's 8 players, it's 8 players per continent. I don't know how that works. We'll see what it is. Anyway, it says the event featured players from 20 countries across the main event and last chance qualifier, and concluded with GM Magnus Carlsen winning the tournament, cashing the $250,000 first prize. As Chess.com announced in November, the EWC returns in 2026 with a bigger year-round qualifying cycle that is already well underway with Title Tuesday Grand Prix and the Speed Chess Championship. Okay, so that's what we have. I think for the first editions there will be gaps for sure, but in the long run, I don't think it's bad for chess. Yeah, it could be decent. Could be decent. So yeah, also of course, US will get 2 more additional spots because of course Greenland is soon going to be a part of the US as well. So yeah, maybe 6 players make it. 2 players, representing quote unquote Greenland, 2 players representing quote unquote Canada. So 6 players. But anyway, it's exciting. It's going to be a new event. We'll see what happens. I've got no idea what it looks like. Who even knows, honestly. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, when my son sleeps, maybe it's just normal for babies. He's like, of course he's lying on the bed, but it's like that.